So of the many reductive statements that I've made about artists, one of them that people probably don't like very much is the one that I've made about Allan Kaprow's works and his happenings. And I actually like a lot of what Allan did, and I was a student of Allan Kaprow's briefly in the 1980s when I was at UCSD and he was teaching there. And but the statement that I've made about Kaprow's work and its limitations are that what it seems to be limited by, in addition to its lack of socio-political direction and purpose in the transformation of structures of society, as opposed to the way that one thinks about and is conscious of one's relationship to other aspects of the world, is that and in addition to the fact that Kaprow always conceived of the work in quotation marks as a form of play or playground or sandbox, the world as a kind of childlike space of daydream, fantasy, and play. But beyond those two things, what I've said limited Kaprow's conception of performance and the happening was that all of his happenings seemed to be metaphors of male sexuality, and I this is an image of one of those happenings, and it's perhaps more clearly limited in that sense than some of the other happenings are, but I have an anecdote about Kaprow and his response to a paper that I wrote. And this paper, or it might have been a series of brief descriptions and analyses of some of the early work by Yoko Ono, and because it was Yoko Ono, throughout this paper, I used the pronoun she, instead of he, and Allan systematically corrected each one of the pronouns designating she, and penned or penciled through them, and put he, and I got the paper back, and I was kind of surprised, because it seemed to me like the obvious subject position of for looking at the work of Yoko Ono was this gendered position occupying woman's experience, and so the pronoun she seemed appropriate. And at that time, this was sometime in the early 80s, the alternate pronouns, they and them, weren't as readily available as they are today, and I chose she, rather than he. And so when I received the papers back, because it's in my nature, to do these things, and the somewhat recursive nature of my own, performance work, allows me to take up responses and reincorporate it into, the work that I do. So I brought my paper to Allan, and I thought of it, as a performance piece, and I asked him, I said, why did you cross out all of the she's and replace them with he's and hims? And and his response was really fairly conventional for someone who is lauded as this profound radicalizer of the conceptions of art. He said, well, this is it's incorrect. This is the convention, you know. So I thought, you know, that was really interesting, and so I thought, I'm not entirely sure why this is occurring to me today, but so based on this piece and this image, and these are oranges that that this woman is she is squeezing, right? And typically, like there is this metaphor, right, that's readily available to anyone, you know, even vaguely capable of seeing the metaphorical and symbolic sort of unconscious or preconscious dimensions of these representations. A woman squeezing oranges and drinking the orange, people playing instruments, and artists painting on a canvas. And there are no uses of, I don't see any here of he's or she's that I could use as an example, but if there were any, you know, ones or ons or thems or theys, or, you know, they would have been transposed into he's and hims for Kaprow. So given that this piece is about oranges and squeezing, I thought I would go to the refrigerator and identify all of the fruit in the refrigerator by pronouns. So that's going to be my performance piece for today. And I have garbanzo beans on the stove, but I'm gonna leave them be, and I'm not going to identify any of the garbanzo beans in relationship to these pronouns. So we'll stick with fruit, you know, based upon this image. Right, so here's the refrigerator, and we'll say that the refrigerator is gender indeterminate or gender neutral, and I'll see what's in the refrigerator. All right, so here are some apples. We'll begin with these, and I'll move on to the other fruit later. So I'm going to do. This is an example of a sorting piece, and you know, I've done a lot of discussion of sorting pieces, and this sorting piece will be dedicated to Allan Kaprow. Now, if I had more arms with hands attached to them, this would be an easier project. So I don't think we need to get too fancy. This counter will do as a space for sorting. All right, so let's take a look at the apple. Okay, so this apple, I don't know why, but it seems extremely masculine to me, so I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to call this area here. I'll move the bowl out of the way so no one will be confused. Put Ajax. Ajax is obviously, you know, reference to a classical male hero. So this will help us define this space as masculine, and we'll put the males over here. Let's see what this one says. Clean works, hand sanitizer, antibacterial. Well, a lot of you know, hospital and healthcare workers, nurses are female, so we'll put this over here to help us identify the female space. And let's see what else we need. This is a little bit conceptual, but there are multiple phrases that belong to this particular object of blessings and light and love. So this can signify multiplicity. So this will be the them. Bless you. I'll put that there. All right, so that'll help us remember where we're at. All right, so this one, whoops, male fell over. This one is clearly different. Well, let's see. Hard to tell if this is a them or a she. I'm going to say it's them, and I don't really have any rationale for it, but you know, I don't know. Maybe the multiplicity of the variations in color. And once I've established that pattern, okay, so we can just start sorting by likenesses. All right, well, this one is clearly got some more yellow than these two, and this one has more of a sort of regular pattern. So we'll just call this female. All right, I'm going to say this is male based on it was, you know, sort of random the way that we established what masculine was. But now that we have a pattern, we can go ahead and like sort everything. So the apples now that that are don't have obvious separate, you know, color schemes are going to be sorted into the masculine category. Then these apples with some yellow areas will be sorted into them, and then large amounts of yellow will be sorted into female category. So this is a she. These are a them and a they. And, you know, largely I would fall into this category of them or they. Myself, as I've mentioned in a variety of talk pieces, there are, you know, so many of us in so many different ways that it's almost ridiculous to identify ourselves as a him or a her. This one, I'm gonna just go with male. Well, it's interesting that males are really dominating the numerical categories. Here's another male, clearly. And still another male. Wow. So in this instance, you know, there's clearly the males clearly outnumber the women and the transgender or other apples that see themselves as either non-binary or as multiple, and that's kind of interesting. Not necessarily what I would have expected. I don't know if there are. What's interesting from a Fibonacci point of view, it's a Fibonacci sequence, but the missing number is of course 3. You know, so all right, that's the first set, and I'll probably only do, you know, I won't do all of the fruit. Maybe I will. Okay, so this is another set of apples. So we're already sorting in multiple ways. We've, you know, sorting by pronoun gender for Allan, and sorting by apples too. So apples are kind of an interesting place to begin with the whole, you know, apples of the Hesperides, and then there's the obviously the, you know, forbidden fruit, and that's certainly a gendered story. And, you know, the apple that, you know, Eve is given responsibility of, you know, corrupting us with first sin and tempting Adam. And wow, these are really going to be difficult to sort. Okay, so there's some variation here, but the variation really seems to have to do with experience more than, you know, the way we assign gender isn't necessarily by experience, but it does seem to me that deciding, you know, to be outside the binary is a kind of experience of choice. And so I'm going to call this experiential aspect of this particular piece of fruit a marker of choice, and I'm going to put this one with them. And let's see, this is more difficult. I don't see any other experiential markers that I can utilize. Well, that's vaguely, this one's kind of indeterminate. This one maybe goes between she and they. And this one, I don't know. I think I should. I'm gonna call this one a she, just because I don't want her to be lonely. And actually, maybe I'll do that here too. This one. Sorting, you know, between the categories is problematic, right? And so I haven't really completely sorted if I put this one here. So this is an act of sorting. And so I really do need to find a home for this one within these three categories. And so I think this one should go over here, just because I'm sympathetic to the lack of balance. All right, so let's see what else we have. All right, now we've already started sorting by gender, and then we're also sorting by variety or species in a way. So there are no more apples, I don't think. So I think I have to move on to. Yes, there are some apples down here. See any. So I think I have to move on to citrus at this point. So we'll go ahead and move on to, we have a lot of lemons. So now the question is, should we sort the lemons into a different area since they're a different species, or go ahead and integrate them into the apples? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to integrate them into the apples. This is if I get close, I can, you know, do more of a Hollis Frampton lemon thing. All right, let's see. Well, okay, here we're going to use this as a experiential and a choice marker, and we're going to go ahead and put that in them. So we haven't really come up with a name for this activity yet. That's going to be a them, but maybe it's you know, sorting pronouns for Allan Kaprow. Them. I think, I don't know why, but the lemons that have like interesting texture and complexity that lends themselves to the category of them and they, in ways that, you know, some of the less interesting surfaces of the apples don't. And then maybe it's the apple stories too that always, you know, seem to involve these, you know, sexual binaries and selections of mates and who's responsible for sin and stuff that makes them easier to designate as male or female. This one's very, though, regular. Well, no. I don't know. This one just feels male to me. I'm gonna put it over here. Sometimes it's, you know, hard to make these decisions. You know, and this one too, it's hard to make. Well, it's smaller, right? So You know, male and female don't have like that distinguished sexual dimorphism in humans, but in some species, and we've been talking about species now that we got to the lemon, that they do. So this one's clearly smaller, so we'll put this one with the females and call her a her. And then that's another way that we can start to identify some of these things, right? So this one's pretty big. Let's just put it over here with the males. And this one could be a female. I'm going to put it with them. Oh, this one is... Oh, this was... Okay, now we have a problem. Because this is an imperfection. Right? And this could spread, right? This is mold, and this could spread. So, wow, this really offers us a big problem here because I think, well, I think we just have to play this out in the Trump universe that we live in, and change the dynamic of our sorting here. All right, so this one. Wow, what do you do with that? Ordinarily we would just throw it away, but let's do this. All right, so I'm gonna stop sorting now, but I'm gonna take some of the messages on them and they seriously, and instead of just throwing this one away, which I otherwise probably would do. I'm gonna go ahead and just see if I can salvage it. And now this is more difficult than it looks because I'm using my left hand to slice this. I might have to put the phone down, or let me see if I can change hands and do this better. Anyway, the idea here is rather than simply throwing it away, the way we otherwise might, I'm not a surgeon. This is totally improvisational. All right. So usually I would have just thrown it all away, but it seems to me that in this particular performance there are fascist implications in doing that, and I don't want to participate in that. But clearly I also don't want to leave this part because that will harm the rest of the of this lemon. We haven't even sorted him or her or them yet. And probably them. So we'll throw this away because this is harming the lemon. And again, I'm going to have to do this one-handed. So it's interesting how in a performance art piece, you think you're going to do one thing and you have this idea, and unpredictable nature of reality changes and modifies, the performance in various ways. So this began as merely a sorting project, but it's turning into a retrieval and reclamation project as well, which is also interesting because we just put some pieces up dealing with reclaiming and retrieving and restoring, right? Restoring this lemon back to health to the best of our abilities, admitting that, we're not professional surgeons. All right, so put those back in the refrigerator. And we'll have to modify, the name of this piece. So in addition to it being, a pronoun sorting piece for Allan Kaprow, it can be a pronoun sorting and loving project for Allan Kaprow.